Sergeant Alina Carter wasn't your typical soldier. Standing at just 5'4", with a quiet, unassuming presence, she often surprised people when they learned what she did for a living. Alina was one of the top K-9 handlers in her military unit, known for her exceptional bond with the dogs she trained. Her two partners, Titan and Blaze, were Belgian Malinois, sleek and muscular canines bred for speed, intelligence, and loyalty. Together, the trio had completed missions that left even seasoned soldiers in awe. Alina's life revolved around discipline and dedication. From sunrise training sessions to late-night strategy meetings, she poured every ounce of energy into ensuring Titan and Blaze were ready for anything. The dogs weren't just animals. They were extensions of herself, capable of detecting explosives, tracking targets, and apprehending threats with precision. Their reputation preceded them wherever they went. On base, everyone respected Alina, not just because of her rank, but because of the respect she commanded through sheer competence. But off base, things were different. Civilians didn't always understand the gravity of her role. To many, she looked like an ordinary woman taking her pets for a stroll. Few realized that beneath her calm exterior lay years of rigorous training and countless hours spent honing her skills alongside her four-legged companions. It wasn't uncommon for people to underestimate her, especially those who judged by appearances alone. One crisp Saturday afternoon, Alina decided to take Titan and Blaze on a long walk outside the base. They needed the exercise, and she relished the chance to unwind after a demanding week. The weather was perfect, clear skies, a gentle breeze, and the scent of pine trees filling the air. As they wandered along the countryside roads, Alina felt a rare sense of peace. For once, it was just her and the dogs, away from the chaos of duty. Her route took her past a small gas station on the outskirts of town. It was a pit stop she'd made dozens of times before, usually without incident. But today, something felt off as soon as she pulled into the parking lot. A group of bikers lounged near their motorcycles, their leather jackets gleaming under the sun. Their engines growled softly, a sound that seemed almost alive. Some smoked cigarettes, while others laughed loudly, their voices carrying across the open space. Alina tried not to pay too much attention. She stepped out of her truck, letting Titan and Blaze stretch their legs. The dogs sniffed around curiously, tails wagging slightly as they explored the unfamiliar surroundings. But it didn't take long for the bikers to notice her. At first, their glances were casual, curious. Then came the whispers. One man nudged another, pointing toward Alina and her dogs. Someone chuckled, breaking the silence. "Look at this," one of them said, loud enough for her to hear. A little girl playing soldier with her puppies. His tone dripped with mockery, drawing laughter from his friends. Another chimed in. "Yeah, those mutts probably couldn't catch a cold, let alone do anything useful." Alina clenched her jaw, but kept moving. She tightened her grip on the leashes, signaling Titan and Blaze to stay close. The last thing she wanted was trouble. Still, the comments stung. She'd faced doubters before, but there was something particularly grating about being dismissed so casually in front of her dogs, the very beings she worked tirelessly to protect and train. The biker's laughter grew louder, echoing in her ears. Each snide remark felt like a pebble tossed into still water, rippling outward until it unsettled her calm demeanor. Yet Alina reminded herself of the lessons she'd learned over the years. Patience, focus, and control. Losing her temper wouldn't solve anything. Besides, she thought wryly, these men had no idea who, or what, they were dealing with. As Alina drove away from the gas station, the hum of her truck's engine mingling with the rhythmic panting of Titan and Blaze in the back, she couldn't help but reflect on what had just happened. It wasn't every day that a routine outing turned into such an unexpected lesson, for both her and the bikers. The encounter had started as a clash of egos, fueled by ignorance and misplaced bravado, but it ended with something far more meaningful, a bridge built between two very different worlds. Back at the base, word of the incident spread quickly. Soldiers passing by stopped to greet her, some offering knowing smiles or nods of approval. "Heard you showed those bikers who's boss," one of them teased lightly, tipping his hat as he walked past. Alina chuckled, brushing off the comment with a shrug. She didn't see herself as a hero or someone who needed recognition. All she cared about was ensuring her dogs were respected for the work they did. Still, hearing the story retold and seeing how it inspired admiration among her peers was oddly satisfying. Over the next few days, life returned to its usual rhythm. Training sessions resumed with Titan and Blaze showing no signs of slowing down. If anything, their performance seemed sharper than ever, as though the challenge in the field had reignited their competitive spirit. Alina pushed them harder, introducing new drills designed to test their speed, agility, and teamwork. Watching them leap over obstacles, weave through tight spaces, and execute commands flawlessly reminded her why she loved this job so much. These dogs weren't just tools of her trade. They were partners, extensions of herself, capable of achieving greatness together. But the ripple effects of that afternoon didn't stop within the confines of the military base. Surprisingly, the bikers kept their promise to change their attitudes, not just toward Alina, but toward others as well. A couple of days later, when Alina stopped by the same gas station during another trip into town, she noticed something unusual. Instead of loud engines revving and rowdy behavior, the group stood quietly near their bikes, chatting amicably with locals. When they spotted her pulling in, their faces lit up with recognition. "Hey, it's her," one of them called out, waving enthusiastically. Several members of the group approached her truck, their body language open and friendly. One man held out a small box wrapped in plain paper. "We got you something," he said, handing it to her awkwardly. "Not much, but we wanted to say thanks." Alina raised an eyebrow, intrigued. She opened the box cautiously, revealing the simple yet thoughtful gift, a custom keychain engraved with a pair of paw prints and the words respect and loyalty. Her lips curved into a soft smile as she looked up at them. "This is really nice," she admitted. "Thank you." The gesture touched her deeply, not because of the item itself, but because of what it represented. These men, who had once mocked her and her dogs, had gone out of their way to acknowledge the lesson they'd learned. It was proof that people could grow, adapt, and change when given the chance. Their leader stepped forward, his expression earnest. "We talked about it after you left," he explained, "about how quick we are to judge people without knowing them. You made us think twice about that. So, yeah, thanks for not holding a grudge." Alina nodded, appreciating his honesty. "I'm glad you took something positive from it," she replied. "That's all I wanted, to show you that respect goes a long way." With that, she climbed back into her truck, waving goodbye as she drove off. As she navigated the winding roads back to the base, Alina felt a renewed sense of purpose. The world was full of challenges, misunderstandings, and moments that tested patience. But it was also full of opportunities to connect, learn, and inspire. And sometimes, all it took was a little courage, a lot of trust, and two incredible dogs to remind everyone of what truly mattered. The days that followed brought a quiet sense of fulfillment for Alina. She hadn't expected the encounter with the bikers to leave such a lasting impression, not just on them, but on herself as well. It reminded her of why she had chosen this path in the first place. To make a difference, no matter how small. Whether it was protecting lives through her work, or simply teaching someone to see beyond their assumptions, every action mattered. And now, thanks to Titan and Blaze, she had done both. Back at the base, the story of the bikers spread like wildfire among her fellow soldiers. Some joked about turning it into campfire lore, while others expressed admiration for how calmly and effectively she had handled the situation. "You didn't just shut them down," one of her colleagues said during lunch. "You taught them something they won't forget." Alina smiled humbly, brushing off the praise. To her, it wasn't about glory. It was about doing what was right. Still, hearing her peers speak so highly of her and her dogs filled her with pride. Titan and Blaze seemed to carry themselves a little taller after that day, too. Their energy during training sessions was unmatched, as if they knew they had proven themselves once again. They tackled every obstacle course with renewed vigor, leaping over hurdles and weaving through poles like seasoned athletes. Watching them, Elena couldn't help but feel grateful, not just for their skill, but for the bond they shared. These dogs weren't just tools of her trade. They were family. Together, they formed a team capable of overcoming any challenge. Outside the base, things changed subtly but noticeably. When Elena walked into town with Titan and Blaze by her side, people greeted her warmly, tipping their hats or offering friendly nods. Even strangers who hadn't been part of the gas station incident seemed to recognize her. Word traveled fast in a small community, and soon enough, everyone knew about the K9 handler whose dogs could take down a biker without breaking a sweat. Children often stopped to stare in awe, pointing at the sleek Belgian Malinois and asking their parents if they could pet them. Elena obliged occasionally, letting the kids interact briefly under her watchful eye. Seeing their faces light up with wonder reminded her of the impact her work had, not just on missions, but on everyday lives. One evening, as she sat outside her quarters watching Titan and Blaze playfully chase each other across the grass, Elena reflected on the bigger picture. Life as a K9 handler wasn't always easy. There were long hours, tough decisions, and moments when the weight of responsibility felt overwhelming. But then there were moments like this. Simple, peaceful, and rewarding. Moments where she could sit back and appreciate the incredible partnership she had built with her dogs, knowing they made a real difference in the world. The memory of the bikers lingered in her mind, not as a source of frustration, but as a reminder of growth and understanding. Those men had started out dismissive, even cruel, but they had ended up learning a valuable lesson about respect and humility. In a way, they had grown alongside her, transforming from adversaries into unlikely allies. It proved that change was possible, even in the unlikeliest of places. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Elena stood up and whistled softly. Titan and Blaze trotted over immediately, their tails wagging in sync. She clipped their leashes onto their collars and gave them each an affectionate pat. "Good job today, boys," she murmured, her voice warm with pride. "Let's head home." Walking back toward her quarters, Elena felt a deep sense of gratitude. For her dogs, for her career, and for the unexpected twists life threw her way. The world might be unpredictable, but one thing remained certain. Wherever she went, Titan and Blaze would be by her side, ready to face whatever came next. And together, they would continue to inspire, protect, and earn respect, one paw print at a time. The field was eerily quiet now, the only sounds being the soft rustle of grass in the breeze and the distant hum of the idling motorcycles. The biker leader stood frozen, his hands still raised in surrender as he stared at Titan and Blaze. His face was pale, beads of sweat glistening on his forehead, despite the cool afternoon air. For a man who had strutted around with such confidence just moments ago, he now looked like someone who had narrowly escaped a close call, and deep down, he knew it. Elena walked forward slowly, her boots crunching against the dry earth. Her steps were deliberate, each one echoing authority. She stopped a few feet away from the biker, her expression calm but unyielding. Behind her, Titan and Blaze sat side by side, their eyes locked onto the man they had just cornered. Though their bodies were relaxed now, there was no mistaking the power coiled within them. They exuded an aura of control that made even the toughest of men think twice about testing their limits again. "You wanted a demonstration," Elena said finally, breaking the silence. Her voice was steady, almost conversational, but carried an underlying edge that demanded attention. "Well, you got one." She gestured toward Titan and Blaze without looking back at them. "These dogs aren't here for your entertainment. They're trained to protect, to track, and yes, to apprehend when necessary. What you saw out here is just a fraction of what they're capable of." The biker swallowed hard, visibly shaken. He glanced at his motorcycle, which lay tilted awkwardly in the dirt where he'd skidded to a stop. Then his eyes darted nervously between Alina and the dogs, as if trying to process how quickly things had turned against him. Finally, he managed to stammer. "Look, I didn't mean any harm. We were just messing around." "Messing around," Elena repeated, her tone sharpening slightly. "Throwing objects at my dogs. Mocking me in front of everyone. Challenging us like this was some kind of game." She shook her head, her frustration evident. "That's not messing around. That's disrespect. Not just to me, but to these animals who've saved lives and put themselves in danger more times than I can count." Her words hit home. The other bikers, who had been watching silently from the sidelines, shifted uncomfortably. Some avoided eye contact altogether, while others exchanged guilty glances. Even the leader seemed to shrink under her gaze, his earlier bravado completely gone. "I'm sorry," he muttered, lowering his hands cautiously. "We didn't know." "You should have thought about that before acting," Elena interrupted, cutting straight to the point. "When you mock someone based on appearances, you're not just hurting them. You're showing how little respect you have for anyone different from yourself. And trust me, if you ever treat another person or animal like that again, you won't be so lucky next time." Her warning hung heavy in the air, leaving no room for argument. The bikers nodded silently, their faces etched with a mix of embarrassment and regret. One of them stepped forward hesitantly, clearing his throat. "Ma'am," he began, his voice unusually respectful, "we really are sorry. We didn't mean anything by it. Honest." Elena studied him for a moment, then gave a slight nod. "Apology accepted," she said simply. But she wasn't done yet. Turning to the group, she added, "If you want to make this right, start by learning to respect people and their work before making assumptions. These dogs are part of a team that protects all of us, whether you realize it or not. Next time, remember that." Her words resonated deeply. The bikers exchanged looks, murmuring apologies among themselves. Some even offered to help clean up the mess they'd caused, though Elena politely declined. She didn't need their gestures. What mattered most was that they understood the lesson she'd delivered, not through anger, but through action. As she turned to leave, Titan and Blaze fell into step beside her, their heads held high. The once hostile atmosphere had shifted entirely, replaced by a newfound sense of mutual respect. Even the biker leader called out after her, his voice sincere. "Hey, thanks for going easy on me. Those dogs are incredible." Elena paused briefly, glancing over her shoulder. "They are," she agreed. "And so am I." With that, she continued walking, her dogs trotting proudly alongside her. The encounter was over, but its impact would linger, for both Elena and the bikers, for a long time to come. The tension had melted away, replaced by an awkward but sincere effort from the bikers to make amends. As Elena prepared to leave, she noticed a surprising change in their demeanor. The same group that had laughed and taunted her earlier now seemed genuinely remorseful, almost eager to prove they weren't bad people, just thoughtless ones. One of them stepped forward hesitantly, holding out a crumpled bill. "Here," he said, his voice tinged with guilt. "Let us pay for your gas or something. It's the least we can do." Elena raised an eyebrow, glancing at the money before shaking her head. "Keep it," she replied evenly. "I don't need compensation. What I wanted was respect, for me and my dogs. And I think you've learned that lesson." Her words carried weight, and the man nodded, stuffing the bill back into his pocket. Another biker chimed in, scratching the back of his neck nervously. "We really didn't mean no harm," he said, his tone softer than before. "It's just, well, we didn't know what you guys were all about. Never seen military dogs up close like this." He gestured toward Titan and Blaze, who sat calmly beside Elena, their presence still commanding despite their relaxed posture. "They're incredible. Seriously." For the first time since the encounter began, Elena allowed herself a small smile. "They are," she agreed. And they've been trained to handle situations far more intense than this one. She paused, looking directly at the group. But it's not just about their training. It's about trust, between me and them, and between them and the mission. That bond is what makes them so effective. Her explanation sparked curiosity among the bikers. Another man spoke up, his voice filled with genuine interest. So, how long does it take to train him? Like to get him to move like that? He pointed vaguely toward the field where Titan and Blaze had cornered their leader just moments ago. His question wasn't mocking this time. It was earnest, almost admiring. A lot longer than you'd think, Alina answered, sensing an opportunity to educate rather than scold. It takes months, even years, of consistent work. They learn commands, tracking skills, bite techniques, and even how to read body language. But it's not just about teaching them tricks. You have to build a relationship with them. They need to trust you completely, and vice versa. The bikers listened intently, nodding as she spoke. Some leaned against their motorcycles, while others crouched down to get a closer look at Titan and Blaze. One bold soul even asked, "Can we pet them?" Alina hesitated, glancing at her dogs. Normally, she wouldn't allow strangers near them without supervision, but today felt different. These men weren't the same cocky group from earlier. They were humbled, respectful, and clearly fascinated. After issuing a quiet command to Titan and Blaze to stay calm, she gave a cautious nod. "Go ahead, but slowly, and only if they let you." The bikers approached carefully, extending their hands for the dogs to sniff. To their delight, both Titan and Blaze accepted the attention gracefully, allowing gentle pats on their heads and backs. A few of the men chuckled nervously when Blaze wagged his tail slightly, breaking the tension entirely. "Man, these guys are solid," one of them said, grinning sheepishly. "Never thought I'd say this, but I kinda respect more than half the things I ride." Alina couldn't help but laugh softly at that. "They'd probably appreciate that," she said, scratching Blaze behind the ears. "Believe it or not, they'd got personalities too. Blaze here is the speedster. He loves chasing anything that moves. And Titan, he's the protector, always watching out for everyone." The conversation continued as the group warmed up to each other. The bikers peppered Alina with questions about K9 units, asking about everything from the selection process for handler dog pairs to the types of missions they typically undertook. Alina answered patiently, sharing stories that highlighted the intelligence, loyalty, and bravery of her canine partners. By the time she finished refueling her truck and loaded Titan and Blaze into the back, the atmosphere had transformed completely. As she climbed into the driver's seat, the bikers waved goodbye, calling out thanks and apologies once more. "Take care of those dogs," one of them shouted, earning nods of agreement from the rest. Alina gave a final wave before starting the engine, driving off with a sense of satisfaction. The day hadn't gone as planned, but it ended with something far more valuable: mutual understanding and newfound respect. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Alina stood still, her posture calm but alert, like a coiled spring ready to snap into action at a moment's notice. Her fingers tightened around the leashes as she kept a watchful eye on the bikers, who were growing bolder by the second. They circled her and the dogs, their laughter now laced with something more dangerous, curiosity mixed with arrogance. To them, this was just a game, a chance to have some fun at the expense of someone they saw as no threat. But Alina knew better. She could feel the energy shifting, the situation teetering on the edge of spiraling out of control. One of the bikers, shorter than the rest but wiry and quick, stepped forward again. He pointed directly at Blaze, his tone mocking. "Hey, lady, you keep saying these are highly trained dogs." He sneered, making air quotes with his fingers. "But we ain't seen nothing yet. What are they gonna do? Sit? Roll over? Fetch your purse?" His buddies erupted into laughter once more, slapping each other on the back, as if they'd just heard the funniest joke of their lives. Alina didn't flinch. Instead, She locked eyes with the man, her expression unreadable. Inside, though, her mind raced. These men clearly had no idea what they were dealing with. Titan and Blaze weren't ordinary dogs. They were elite military animals trained to respond to the slightest command, capable of taking down fully grown adults in seconds. The thought crossed her mind that maybe she should walk away, leave the scene before things got worse. But something stopped her. It wasn't just pride. It was principle. She couldn't let their disrespect slide, not when it undermined everything she and her dogs represented. Another biker chimed in, his voice louder and more aggressive. "Yeah, come on. Let's see what they're made of." He gestured wildly toward the open field behind the gas station, where the grass stretched out for acres under the bright afternoon sun. "Why don't we give them a real test? See if they can catch me on my bike." His challenge hung in the air, daring Elena to take the bait. For a moment, there was silence. Even the bikers seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see how Elena would respond. Some looked eager, while others appeared slightly uneasy, as if sensing they might be crossing a line. Elena hesitated, weighing her options carefully. On one hand, she didn't want to encourage their reckless behavior or put herself and her dogs in unnecessary danger. On the other hand, walking away now would only reinforce their mockery. And that was something she refused to tolerate. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Elena nodded slowly. "Fine," she said, her voice steady and clear despite the knot of nerves tightening in her stomach. "You want a demonstration. You'll get one." Her words carried a weight that silenced the group momentarily. For the first time since the encounter began, the bikers stopped laughing. There was something in Elena's tone, a quiet authority, that made them pause, even if only for a second. The leader of the group smirked, clearly pleased with himself. "That's more like it," he said, strutting back toward his motorcycle. "Don't worry, sweetheart, I'll go easy on him." His friends cheered him on, egging him to hop onto his bike and rev the engine loudly. The sound echoed across the parking lot, startling a few birds perched on nearby power lines. Elena crouched down beside Titan and Blaze, speaking softly to them in hushed tones. Though her words were meant for the dogs, her gaze never left the bikers. She gave them a final warning, her voice firm but measured. "You have no idea what you're messing with," she said, looking directly at the leader. "If you're serious about this, then fine, but don't say I didn't warn you." Her words seemed to roll off the bikers, who dismissed her caution as empty bravado. The leader grinned, adjusting his helmet as he climbed onto his bike. "Let's see what your mutts can really do," he taunted, revving the engine again. His friends gathered around, shouting encouragement and placing bets among themselves. None of them noticed the subtle shift in Titan and Blaze's demeanor. Their bodies tensed, muscles rippling beneath their sleek coats as they prepared to act. Elena gave them one last command, her voice sharp and authoritative. "Ready." And just like that, the stage was set. The open field stretched out before them, a blank canvas waiting to reveal the true nature of the challenge ahead. For Elena, this wasn't just about proving a point. It was about showing these men exactly why respect mattered, especially when it came to those who dedicated their lives to protecting others. The gas station parking lot was far from quiet now. The bikers' laughter hung heavy in the air, a mix of arrogance and bravado that made Elena's skin prickle. She could feel their eyes on her, judging, mocking, not just her but Titan and Blaze too. Her dogs, sensing her tension, stood closer to her side, their ears perked up and bodies slightly rigid. Though they were trained to remain calm in chaotic situations, even they seemed to recognize that something wasn't right. Elena took a deep breath, reminding herself not to react. She'd been in tougher spots before, both on and off the battlefield. This was just another test of patience, she told herself. But it wasn't easy. Each snicker, each sarcastic comment felt like a challenge, one she knew better than to rise to. Still, ignoring them entirely wasn't an option either. Her priority was keeping Titan and Blaze safe and ensuring the situation didn't escalate unnecessarily. As she refueled her truck, trying to focus on the mundane task at hand, one of the bikers stepped forward. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his leather jacket adorned with patches that hinted at years spent riding rough roads. His boots scuffed against the pavement as he approached, stopping just a few feet away from Elena. "Hey, girlie," he called out, his voice dripping with condescension. "What kind of soldier are you supposed to be? You look more like someone who lost her way to the dog park." His words drew more laughter from his friends, who leaned against their bikes or sat on nearby benches, clearly enjoying the show. Elena glanced at him briefly, then returned her attention to the fuel pump. She didn't say a word, choosing instead to tighten her grip on Titan and Blaze's leashes. Both dogs stayed perfectly still, their sharp eyes locked onto the man as if sizing him up. Even without barking or growling, their presence radiated authority, a stark contrast to the biker's dismissive attitude. The man smirked, emboldened by her silence. "Come on, don't be shy," he pressed, stepping closer. "Let's see what those military dogs can do. Bet they're all bark and no bite." His tone shifted slightly, becoming more taunting. "Or maybe you're the one who doesn't know how to handle them." Elena finally turned to face him, her expression unreadable. There was no fear in her gaze, only quiet determination. "These dogs aren't here for your entertainment," she said firmly, her voice steady despite the rising tension. "They're highly trained professionals. I suggest you keep your distance." Her response only fueled the bikers' amusement. One of them shouted, "Highly trained? Yeah, right." Another threw back his head and laughed, shaking his beer bottle in the air. "Prove it. Show us what they've got." Before Elena could respond, one of the bikers decided to take matters into his own hands, or rather, his arm. With a flick of his wrist, he tossed a crumpled beer can toward Titan and Blaze. The metallic object clattered loudly as it hit the ground near the dog's paws. Startled, Titan let out a low growl, his hackles rising instantly. Blaze mirrored his reaction, standing alert and ready to act. Elena reacted quickly, issuing a sharp command. "Stay," she ordered, her voice cutting through the noise like a knife. Immediately, both dogs obeyed, freezing in place. Their growls subsided, though their piercing stares remained fixed on the group of bikers. The man who had thrown the can grinned smugly, clearly pleased with himself. "Oh wow, big deal," he jeered. "You're tough guys scared of a little trash." The other bikers roared with laughter, egging him on. "Yeah, come on, show us what else they can do," someone shouted. Another added, "Maybe we should give them a real challenge." Despite the mounting pressure, Elena refused to engage further. She focused on calming Titan and Blaze, speaking softly to them in a tone only they could understand. Her words worked like magic. Within moments, the dogs relaxed slightly. Though their watchful eyes never left the bikers, Elena knew this was far from over. These men weren't going to back down anytime soon, and their reckless behavior was pushing her, and her dogs, to the brink of losing control. For now, she held her ground, silently calculating her next move. Every instinct told her to teach these men a lesson they wouldn't forget, but doing so would require careful planning. After all, showing off her dog's abilities wasn't about proving a point. It was about protecting herself and her team. And if the bikers wanted a demonstration, she thought grimly, they were about to get one they hadn't bargained for. The open field behind the gas station was vast and empty, a golden expanse of dry grass swaying gently in the breeze. The bikers gathered at the edge, their motorcycles lined up like metal sentinels, engines idling impatiently. The leader, still wearing his cocky grin, revved his engine one last time before kicking up dirt as he sped into the field. His friends cheered him on, shouting taunts and bets, convinced that no dog, no matter how trained, could catch someone on a roaring motorcycle. Elena stood calmly at the starting line, her eyes scanning the scene with precision. She wasn't fazed by the noise or the chaos around her. Instead, she focused on what mattered most: Titan and Blaze. Her dogs were already in position, their bodies coiled with energy, ready to explode into action at her command. They weren't just animals. They were finely tuned machines, capable of speeds that rivaled many vehicles. Their instincts were razor-sharp, honed through years of rigorous training. Alina knew exactly what they could do, and so did the dogs. Before giving the signal, Alina glanced over her shoulder at the bikers. Some were laughing, others smirking, but none seemed remotely concerned about the outcome. To them, this was still a joke, a harmless bit of fun meant to pass the time. Alina didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Her silence spoke volumes, a quiet confidence that contrasted sharply with their loud bravado. With a deep breath, she turned back to the field and gave her dogs their final instructions. "Go," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the din like a whip crack. In an instant, Titan and Blaze sprang forward, their powerful legs propelling them across the uneven ground with breathtaking speed. The sudden burst of motion caught everyone off guard. Even the biker leader, who had assumed he'd have plenty of time to maneuver. But there was no delay, no hesitation. The dogs moved as one, a blur of muscle and determination, closing the distance between them and the motorcycle in seconds. The biker tried to zigzag, weaving left and right in an attempt to throw them off course. He leaned hard into turns, accelerating whenever he thought he had gained some space. But Titan and Blaze anticipated every move, reading the terrain and adjusting their paths with uncanny accuracy. Blaze took the lead, darting ahead to cut off potential escape routes, while Titan stayed close behind, driving the biker toward tighter spaces where his bike's bulk became a disadvantage. Back at the sidelines, the other bikers watched in stunned silence. Gone were the jeers and laughter. Now all that remained was wide-eyed disbelief. One of them muttered under his breath, "No way. These dogs are unreal." Another shook his head, unable to look away from the spectacle unfolding before them. Even the most skeptical among them couldn't deny what they were seeing. Titan and Blaze weren't chasing blindly. They were executing a strategy, working together as a seamless unit to corner their target. Meanwhile, the biker leader grew increasingly desperate. Sweat dripped down his face beneath his helmet as he realized his usual tricks weren't working. Every turn, every burst of speed only brought the dogs closer. Finally, in a last-ditch effort to evade them, he veered sharply to the side, hoping to lose them in the tall grass. But Blaze saw it coming. With a quick change of direction, he intercepted the bike, forcing the rider to skid sideways to avoid collision. The motorcycle fishtailed wildly, kicking up clouds of dust before finally screeching to a halt. Titan followed up instantly, planting himself squarely in front of the fallen bike, his teeth bared in a low warning growl. Blaze flanked the other side, his posture tense and alert, leaving the biker completely boxed in. For a moment, everything went still. The hum of the idling bikes in the distance, the rustle of the wind through the grass, the heavy breathing of both man and beast. Then, slowly, the biker raised his hands in surrender. "I'm done," he shouted, his voice trembling. "I give up. Call them off." Alina stepped forward, her expression unreadable. She gave a sharp whistle, and immediately, Titan and Blaze backed away, returning to her side with perfect obedience. They sat beside her, panting lightly but otherwise calm, their job complete. The biker climbed off his bike unsteadily, brushing dirt from his jeans. His bravado was gone, replaced by a mix of awe and fear. He looked at Alina, then at the dogs, clearly struggling to process what had just happened. For Alina, the satisfaction wasn't in proving herself, it was in showing these men the truth. Her dogs weren't toys or props. They were highly skilled partners who deserved respect. And now, thanks to Titan and Blaze, the bikers understood that lesson all too well.